the maiden conference of the newly appointed Inspector General of Police with the force's most senior officers. The IGP is received by the most senior Deputy Inspector General, Frank Mba, and other DIGs who served under the immediate past police chief. A formal briefing follows, outlining the hierarchy, personnel strength, and senior command structure present at the meeting. The IGP unveils his command philosophy and strategic direction for the Nigeria Police Force, calling for renewed discipline, professionalism, and alignment with his reform-driven leadership vision, especially as Nigeria prepares for the 2027 general elections.
As we approach the 2027 general elections, our responsibilities to the nation becomes both heightened and non-negotiable. The credibility of the electoral process, the stability of our democracy, and the confidence of the Nigerian people will depend largely on the conduct of the Nigerian police force. Let me state, without ambiguity, there will be zero tolerance to partisanship, misconduct, or abuse of authority. Any officer found to have compromised neutrality, violate electoral laws, or act outside approvals of management will face strict disciplinary action, including prosecution where applicable.
The high point of the conference is the inauguration of a steering committee on state policing to develop, within 4 weeks, a practical and sustainable framework for implementing state police.
Assess community security needs and emerging risks amongst the country. Propose an operational framework for the establishment and coordination of state police structures. Address issues relating to recruitment, training standard, and resource allocation. Develop robust accountability and oversight mechanism to ensure professionalism and public trust.
President Bola Tinubu has publicly backed ongoing discussions on decentralizing policing powers to enable states play a more active role in internal security management. The inauguration marks a significant institutional step towards what could become one of Nigeria's most far-reaching policing reforms in decades. Questions remain over the fate of senior deputy inspectors general who were former superior officers to the new IGP. Ihotu Odo, Arise News.
All right, for more on security situations in Nigeria and the calls for state police, we'll have joining me in the studios a public affairs commentator and senior lecturer at the Benue State University, or is it University of Disu also, Dr. Sebastian Agbinda. And also with me is a legal practitioner and the national coordinator advocates for people's rights and justice, Giwa Victor. Gentlemen, very warm welcome to Newsnight. Maybe I should just start with you, Sebastian. I mean, when you look at the whole corpus of the issue of state policing, you would rather, be taken aback with the spate of insecurity in the country that some federating units are perhaps still hesitant of the creation of state police.
Yeah, you're asking a fundamental question. There are certain federating units that are, from an ethnic point of view, beneficiaries of the absence of state and local government police. I need to add that because there's a fixation that is, seems to be overwhelming the space, the analytical space around state police, and which seems to ignore the efficacy of local government police.
We'll come to that.
Yeah, so I am saying that this is an issue that ought to have been resolved very early if we understood the laws of federalism. In Nigeria you have 3 tiers. Elsewhere you have 2 tiers, whichever you want to deploy, especially given our modeling. We have modeled our federalism around the US. So we are supposed to have state, local government, and police.
Which we used to have in the First Republic.
part of the problem is
pre-independence and post-independence, right?
indeed, part of the problem is some of the high-handedness of the local government police system during that era, which was actually mostly responsible for the coup, the high-handed, the overreach.
So if it happens then,
there's fear.
then what? So some of the federating units have that palpable fear
and
that could be used again.
It ought not to be, because we are seeing how federal units, federating units across the world, especially in the US, how the security outfits work. And if we have modeled our system in the model of the US, we are supposed to understand that you must have local government police, you should have state police. In the US, you even have so many other security outfits which entirely preclude the type of what you have in the country today. You have, for instance, you have a Fulani militia that is marauding the whole space and generating the insecurity we have today. If you have local government police times 774, there's no way this can happen.
Nigeria will be secured. Okay, let me turn to
just that, not even state yet, not state police.
Okay, let me turn to the lawyer.
The idea that
let's look at the legal issues surrounding creating state police. It's a constitutional matter. Mr. President, is passionate about it, no doubt. He's given the governors the marching orders. Look, let's have state police so that the issue of insecurity in Nigeria would be curtailed. Do you think state policing is the answer to the myriad of insecurity problems that beset Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good question. Firstly, I think I support the fact that we should have state police. And of course, the president has given it to go ahead, and the Inspector General of Police, Disu, have set up committee to look at the structural framework with a view of determining the issue of recruitment, training, and reallocation of resources. However, I want us to be a bit, retrospect and circumspect about the issue of state police. I don't want us to look at with the intention of solving a temporal problem to create a permanent
Hydra, dead one.
Yes. I don't want us with the intention of creating a temporal solution will now cause a permanent problem. Now, because we need to look at the terrain. Yes, there is a lot of insecurity. Yes, we need state police. This is a federating unit. Each of the states are supposed to be well policed, especially the fact that we are under policed. But what are the legal framework? I expected that by now, just as the president interfaced with the National Assembly, the Inspector General of Police have set up, coming from the angle of the police, we need, for example, the Attorney General of the Federation.
And the state attorney general. They have to sit down
to come together to come out with a legal framework. For example, Section 214 talks about there shall be a Nigerian police force. Are we going to be having a state
there should be an amendment
Nigeria
to that.
police
Definitely,
force?
yeah.
Are we going to have state police? And when we say state police, could we see, for example, the Amotokon as a state police? Could we
metamorphose?
Yes, would there be metamorphose into state police? What could be their modus operandi? If you have, for example, a state commissioner of police, are we saying that the state police will be cleared, will be appointed by the governor, will be cleared by the State House of Assembly? Who promotes what? How will the recruiting process begin? Is it from the national or from the state? If we are going to recruiting from the state, are we not sure that we're having issue of ethnic and tribal policing for the state? For example, if you are from Kano State, and we are saying that, oh no, we should have state police, and the Kano State recruits police from within.
They have ISBA already.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, but you see, people should not. It would be too simplistic for you to say that, oh, we have Ametokun, oh, we have ISBA, and you just say, oh no, it is possible. You should understand the fact that those are seen as well attempts by state governors to solve some immediate. For example, the ISBA, they will tell you that it is to look at issue of phone theft. There was a time in the news where we saw that, the duties of ISBA should look at issue of minor issues. But when you talk about state police, the people that have the force of law, people that can arrest you, people that can send you to jail, people that can restrict your movement, people that can, we need to look at the laws. For example, again, if you see two incidences that took place, Kano and Edo State, there was this case of ADC having meeting in Edo State, and there was some, interference by some people they call thugs. The Commissioner of Police in Edo State, for the best of our knowledge, have not made any arrest.
But the DSS
the DSS, no, yes, the DSS did. If we have a state police, and for example, the Edo State government belongs to a political party, and there's the state police, what could have happened?
Where would there be fairness?
What would have been fairness? So those are the issues that we need to put into consideration so that we have a proper framework that will become the real guard to some of these issues.
Absolutely. Let me come back to you, Sebastian. The issue of funding and fixation of state police, nobody is talking about, the sheriff and the council. That is local government police. Well, I said, pre-independence and post-independence, in the early years of Nigeria, we used to have local government, police. They call them in the Southwest, then they'll say Afamako police and the rest. I don't know, they were not remunerated. But now we're talking of funding. A lot of state governments cannot even fund themselves. Funding the police is a critical aspect of security architecture. Do you agree?
We shouldn't sacrifice some of the core tenets of federalism on the altar of funding. Of course, funding can easily be resolved, if that is your concern, through, reworking the...
Not my concern. Concern of some segments of the public.
Your question, not personal. The question you raised. You rework we're talking about fiscal federalism, so you rework the sharing formula, as it were. Elsewhere, you wouldn't even worry about that. There are revenue streams that the states and local governments exercise in generating funding for their local security agencies. But in this case, you are going back to the Revenue Allocation and Fiscal Commission. They will rework the sharing formula accordingly. There are new burdens that are coming to states and local government. I continue to say states and local governments. It is nonsensical to begin to think of state police without considering the idea that we ought to have local government police forces on account of the laws of federalism. We are running, most federal systems run two-tier systems. That is 2 tiers. Federal and state. In Nigeria, we run 3 tiers. So if you're talking about states, you're talking of 36 police forces. If you want to look at it in the context of the 3rd tier that we have, where the security is least in the country, there's an over-concentration of security at the center. It diminishes as you go to the states. You have chief security officer called governor, doesn't have security powers to command. Now you have local governments, there is no presence of state of security. So if you have 774 local government police forces, in the US you have county police. George Floyd was picked up and marauded by county police. They are heavily armed. It is only when they are overwhelmed that the state police do come in.
The state troopers.
So you need to have the 774 local government police forces.
For us to be talking about curtailing insecurity.
That way, there is no way that the Fulani militia would have contemplated going out local government by local government to maraud. It's entirely precluded. It's forestalled. It can't happen. They would know that they can't. In the US, let me add this. What they have done, which is not wouldn't be advisable here, is that they have liberalized, security to the point where individuals have access to guns. Florida is
Nigeria is not a gun-carrying society.
No. I'm talking about federalism.
Yeah, but
I'm talking
Nigeria,
about federalism.
The Constitution does not allow that.
That is what I'm saying. Now, the Constitution doesn't allow state police. It doesn't allow local government police. I'm saying we shouldn't be fixated about, talking about state police
Without
alone.
talking about the local
The
government
local
police
government
and the rest.
And I'm saying we shouldn't talk about individual gun control, which is the follow-through that you have in the U.S. We should limit it. And then the other question you raised about, fiscal burden that they are going to bear.
Yeah.
Of course, even now states have access to, we call them security votes that they mismanage. I am aware of this. They mismanage.
Okay, Sebastian, we don't have so much time, but I think you've made your submissions in a very succinct manner. Let me come to you, Giwa, so that you can give us some legal perspective, to this agitation. It definitely will mean re-amending the Constitution, no doubt, and the rest. And when we talk about funding, shouldn't there be also the amendment to the revenue allocation sharing formula?
Of course, that will also look with the Constitution or the amendment will consider those areas, because each of the states have various capacity, population, and geographical area. So it is something that's very key. We need to look at the revenue.
The landmass, for example, when you look at Niger State
and look at Bayelsa State, you find out that the landmass is quite different. So it will tell you the number of persons each state will need and the kind of resources you will need to to fund this. But security is a very big, it's financially,
gulping
project. So it is very important that the federal government takes that into consideration, because how are you going to look at a state like Lagos and compare it with that of Gombe? How are you going to look at Bayelsa and compare it with that of Sokoto? What kind of state policy will you be looking at? Or are we going to look at a situation where the police is still, the recruitment process and the funding will still be central, but the operationality will be coming from the each of the states?
No,
it is very, very fundamental. So the law needs, that's why I talk about the legal framework. We need to know what exactly it will be looking like, so that we don't have some imbalance within the state in terms of the manpower, the financial burden. There are some states that cannot even pay minimum wage as little as minimum wage.
Yeah, they don't pay.
Now. So not talk about...
They still pay the old minimum wage.
Not to talk about adding extra, talking about providing weapons, providing facility.
That was the burden the
Policing is not a small
President
business.
Buhari raised, when the issue of state police came before him as president. He said,
because it's a big project.
He said, how can I go and burden states that cannot even pay salaries?
That is the excuse. You see, all of that arises from the fact that there are certain
Sebastian,
ethnicities.
I'm so sorry. We have fixed commercials to take, and there isn't much time to continue these discussion. Victor Giwa is a legal practitioner. Thanks so very much for sharing your thoughts with us on the issue of state police. And Dr. Sebastian Agbinda, a lecturer and public affairs commentator. Thanks for coming on Newsnight.